Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Tastemaker Talk, where you get to chat with your food creator business besties. We are your hosts, Abbey and Chandice. I'm the CEO, and Chandice is the COO of Tastemaker Conference. We are very excited to be with you today. We have Sandie Markle from Blueberri joining us. But before we get into that, talking about diversifying income streams, Chandice is going to give us a little new food news presentation of what we need to know that's going on in the world of food news.
Of food. We don't have a jingle still, but I'm going to do a couple of the first ones a little fast because I want to talk about the other ones. But the first one is Gator Wine. The viral Gatorade and wine combo is here to ruin your dinner party.
Blech.
Right?
I'm getting the ick.
Yes, so a lot. That's a whole viral drink now, which I'm like, who thought of that? But apparently it's not been received very well. Next up, Costco is raising their memberships for the first time in 7 years, which I mean, I think that companies are having to change and do things, but I know people are like, no, because as we learned in one of our previous episodes, grocery prices are already up like 40%. It's insane. Absolutely insane. A mom catches her teen stealing vodka and doesn't believe it, that it was for pasta sauce. And then the teen executes it perfectly. And she's like, okay. Isn't that the best thing? Oh, no, I was taking it for pasta sauce. I don't think so. Okay, show me. And then executes it perfectly. All right. Awesome. I just thought that one was pretty funny. I'm a Chiefs fan, as Abby knows. So Travis Kelce has eaten the same pregame meal since he joined the Chiefs. Can you guess what it is? Either of you? Remember, football is in the afternoon, so it's breakfast.
Okay, so we get a hint, Sandie. I'm gonna say an omelet.
I'm gonna say overnight oats.
Okay, you guys are not close, but that's okay. It's French toast and strawberries. Think about like all the carbs, like you're trying to get ready for a game, carb up,
So this is his pregame meal for every day.
He said that he did it that one time, and then he's just done it ever since then as his pregame meal. He always has French toast and strawberries, and then after each game, he has pizza or a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Oh, I love
classics.
Yeah, just classics. And then along with that, we're big Kelsey brother fans. So Jason and Travis just came out with a whole line of products with General Mills. Have you seen that? There's cereal. They have the funniest commercials out. So they're doing like a whole cereal lineup. I mean, they're taking over everything right now, but especially it's fun that's filtered over into food. And he and Patrick Mahomes are opening a really nice restaurant in Kansas City. So that's pretty exciting. Lastly, let's see, the one I wanted to tell you. Oh, last thing, the Campbell's Soup Company is changing their name after more than 100 years.
To what? No one knows.
Anticlimactic.
Wow.
They're dropping the soup. They're just going to be the Campbell's Company. I'm like,
okay,
that's not very like exciting.
It's not very jaw-dropping.
Yeah. So the Campbell's Soup Company will no longer be the Campbell's Soup Company. So it'll be interesting to see why the change, what they have on the horizon. In my mind, that's what I'm thinking is why are they making this change? What are they planning on doing? So that's our new food news for the week. And then we are also going to be doing our little sponsor highlight today. So before we dive into our discussion, we are going to feature Just Ingredients. Just Ingredients' mission is to provide health and wellness products that are made with only real ingredients. They believe that nourishing your body inside and out is essential for living a healthy life and fulfilling life. That's why they created a range of products that are free from artificial additives and added sugars, just real ingredients. They have everything from protein powder and tooth polish to deodorant. I love it and use it, to dry shampoo. I mean, the gamut. They have food and wellness products. And so thank you, Just Ingredients. We can't wait to see you on Friday for VTC. And thank you for joining us as a wellness sponsor for Tastemaker Conference 2025. And we'll see them in Las Vegas.
Woohoo! So in terms of community updates, and then we'll get into our discussion, we have virtual Tastemaker Conference in 2 days. That is this Friday on September 13th. We have incredible speakers lined up. We are talking all things monetization. So I think we only have 21 tickets left at this point. So if you haven't bought a ticket and you're watching this before Friday, the 13th, you can get your spot if there's still tickets available. And Daphne is dropping the link in the chat in the show notes as well. So you'll be able to find it there. So now, speaking of monetization, our topic is diversifying income streams for food bloggers and creators. We all know this has been a huge topic. I feel like we talk about it all the time, and it's for a good reason, just with all the changes. And so we are joined by Sandie Markle of Blueberri Consulting. You may have seen some of her comments, and I believe it's in our Facebook group, talking about the antitrust suit and Google and all these things. And it's just, you have such a wealth of information, Sandie. So I'm super excited to hear from you. And Sandie's goal is to empower businesses to excel in the digital age by seamlessly integrating content and technology. So welcome to Tastemaker Talk. We'd love for you to intro yourself and let everybody know about you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Sandie, and I've actually been working with food bloggers and businesses in food tech, not just now, but actually for the last decade. But now with Blueberri, I've been able to kind of really focus on creating more opportunities to kind of bridge the gap between those two sides and, create opportunities for more sustainable growth on both sides. So I'm really happy to be here.
That is so exciting. Yay. And I think we met you. How did we meet? You were working with the company, I think, like a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was with a food tech startup, and I actually I had my team, and we were trying to build a content partnerships program. And so I saw the Tastemakers event and actually sent my team members to Tastemakers. It was the fall of the end of 2019. And that's when I first met Chandice and just got, and then 2020 happened, and then that was that. But that's when I first kind of had a exposure to Tastemakers, and you guys are amazing since then. It's been really exciting to see your growth too.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years. It's wild to think that it's been 5 years since we were in Portland in 2019. Which
Yeah.
kind of feels like I love all of our events, but I really loved Portland. But also I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so there might be a little bit of that in there. But yeah, good times pre-pandemic.
For sure.
So we're just going to jump right in and just talk to you about your experience with diversifying income and your experience with food bloggers. What are some of the most common income streams that you see as you're consulting that bloggers are relying on today? And why is it essential that they diversify? What does that look like?
Yeah, so from my perspective, diversification doesn't just mean adding more ads or brand deals. So one strategy that I've seen work well for some content creators is creating digital products, like ebooks or cooking courses, which you can sell directly to consumer, direct to your audiences. And another avenue, actually, that's something that I started working on over 5 years ago, which is you see a lot more. It's almost like everybody has it, which is shoppable recipes, where bloggers are integrating product links directly into their recipes, the add to ingredients, and, they can click into it. And with the rise of AI-powered platforms, I've seen even people do customized meal plans, where people are personalizing their diets and their preferences, and then a meal plan kind of shoots out. I don't see as much of that, but that's definitely something I've seen a lot in. And the reason why diversification is so important is because just in life, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. So it's, one of the first food blog conferences I've ever went to, this idea of a passive income stream, was very much, embedded in my mind, because I learned so much about how important that is, because you are juggling so much hats as a food blogger, as a content creator, as an influencer. You need something to just work on its own. And, when it comes to the ads, and the brand deals, which are still viable models, there's just so much of those kinds of things that you can do at one time. So, and also if your focus is on just those two types of paths, then you may be missing out on others.
Yeah, for sure.
Myself.
Candice is up.
So I wanted to ask you also, I think that it's great that you're really addressing these things with people. And we want to ask you about sharing some of those innovative strategies for food bloggers that they can use to diversify their income beyond traditional advertising and sponsorship. So and also with that, what are some of the unexpected avenues that are proving successful?
Yeah, AI is definitely making its way across industries and globally. You cannot get away from it. And it's not that AI hasn't been around for a very long time, but now it's hitting the mainstream. That's what the difference is, actually, because we've seen AI being incorporated into our lives since spell check came along. But now, because people's awarenesses of it is heightened, then now we're talking more about it. And it also has jumped in what it's able to do. So for content creation, there's so many AI tools out there that help with, for example, automating recipe formatting and social media scheduling. A lot of these things, maybe the content creators who are on right now are already using, even helping with SEO. I was thinking, even using AI to, help with recipes and the different recipes that you can create, and popular search terms and shopping lists and all these things. So I think there's so many AI tools that are out there. I recently wrote an article about sentiment analysis, and this idea, like, this word is very high, but what all it means is that there's a lot of social media tools out there that have this feature that can help you use real-time data that is based on the engagement of your audience to actually create an analysis that will help you engage with your audience even better. So the technology doesn't make you feel farther away from your audience, but closer. So, a lot of the things that are happening with technology is using real-time data and training those models so that you can use that information to make your work better, to make experiences better for those with whom you engage with. So, there's a lot of tools out there that I think are really interesting, that I think content creators should just try out, and maybe they're already using too.
Yeah, and so I think in order to understand, like, what is the pathway then for using AI, using data to then create another source of income? Because I think, right, we think about advertising, brand partnerships, or even products and whatnot. So if I'm understanding this correctly, you're saying use the tools that are AI driven, use that to your advantage to get the feedback and get the data about what your consumers are looking for, and then maybe create a diversified product around that. Do you think
so? That's one way. Yeah. So that's one way. Just, about your own process. And then the other way, of course, is what kind of partnerships that you would look for. So, I think partnering with innovative platforms that are tech driven, that are also really important, because the thing about, brand sponsorships, a lot of them center around the CPGs, like, all the different products that we know in our kitchens, but also helping content creators, bloggers also understand that there's actually a whole list of companies that they could work with as content creators. Years ago, I worked with an influencer to launch an Amazon Alexa skill. Now, from my personal opinion, I feel like that's a very underutilized opportunity, because we all have these devices in our home, but using cooking to be on a new platform. So that's one thing. And then there's a lot of even CPG brands that are embracing technology. For example, Impossible Foods. So for example, when Impossible Foods first came out, they're essentially a biotech company, right? They're creating these plant-based meals, but over time, they started using AI to fine-tune their products, to perfect their flavors, to improve their distribution, and integrating tech into their processes. So that's the kind of forward-thinking approach that I think food bloggers should also have. It's a mindset. So it's basically like, thinking outside of the box, embracing technology and how that can open up new doors. So imagine collaborating with a company to develop recipe integrations, for example, personalized meal plans using AI, or even co-branded content that taps into, whatever they're doing. So being aware of how brands are pushing boundaries with technology, I think as creators expands the way we approach potential partnerships. So, it gives almost like a new income opportunity, whether it's curating content that aligns with the brand's tech-driven missions, or finding new ways to add value that resonate with their audiences as well. So I think that's, one thing, the mindset of being aware of those kinds of things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sandie, I think more people are going to be, we learned at our last conference when Microsoft spoke, sorry, Abby, I totally didn't cut you off.
Oh, no, I was going to ask you a question, so this is fine.
Okay. We learned at our last conference when Microsoft spoke that they said those influencers and creators who utilize technology or AI will far surpass those who don't. And it's within an ethical way. We're not using it to create our recipes. We're not using it to pop out a photo that's not actually ours, but we're using it as a tool, just like you're talking about. So I think that's really, really great that you're reiterating the importance of that. Abby, what did you want to ask?
Yeah, no, I was just talking because like the next, question that we're already talking about this, just like integrating AI into content creation and like having it be a part of that and how it's being used. Because I think there is some sentiment in the food blogger industry right now of the issue with how Google is handling AI in search and the whole antitrust that is happening, that is a huge precedent for, Google having a monopoly on search. I think that really goes into this conversation because I think it's a mixed bag. So I want to
Absolutely.
talk about that, like from your perspective, because you're in the tech space. And I really loved your response when I had posted that a few weeks ago when that ruling came out of like why this matters for creators in this conversation that's happening about AI is essentially taking away creator revenue because the search results are all being AI generated. Like what does that mean for the future, just from your perspective? I mean, nobody knows, but I think it's nice.
Yeah. It's funny because when that ruling first came out, I didn't even see it. My husband said, "Oh, Google is no longer a monopoly," and to the extent that he was sympathizing with them, and I was like, "Well, it's hard because I think for myself and all other content creators, you never, because they did have a monopoly, and so everything you did was all about ranking and being relevant so that you can generate some kind of income and engagement. But what this opens up is being able to successfully be on different platforms and being able to explore different platforms. Like I said, in the past, we're looking at the Alexa device or other platforms that are off web, but because all your money making opportunities are not just on the web, on Google. So I think, there's so many other search engines out there where other people engage. And actually, there's actually a lot of people who don't use Google. They use other platforms for search. So what if you could tap into those? And I think another thing is, this idea of AI. There is no governance on AI right now as a new technology. And, this is not the first time that new technologies have not had governance at first. So I also don't know, but I feel confident that there will be, because I was attending a AI conference in June, and there's a lot of huge in San Francisco and thousands of people attending this conference from the public sector. So, like government. And so, of course, privacy is a big thing. So they're also interested in technology, in AI and other emerging technology. So governance is required. So even though it's very stressful right now when you see, not just not just AI recipes being copied from existing recipes, but also, hello, Google, you just put AI on the very top of the screen, the SERP, and it's pushing down ads, it's pushing down, so you have to work even harder to do it. So those things are definitely at the top of mind of content creators, as it very well should be. But with this ruling, also with people talking about, privacy and, if and structuring, the way AI, because AI is a tool, it's a model, it can be trained. So I believe that, the most important thing right now is for bloggers to get a basic understanding of what's actually happening with AI and what's not. And so that you can be part of that conversation, how to talk the talk, how to, what's actually happening, so that when you do have these conversations with brands and companies who may want to work with you, then you know what questions to ask and how to protect your IP in a way that you feel comfortable with.
I love that. That is a golden nugget of advice right there.
So Sandie, speaking along the lines of, making sure that we're understanding and that, as bloggers and creators, tell us a little bit. So when thinking of building a tech savvy food blog that can compete on Google and really, perform well, I would love to hear a little bit more about some of the best practices that you recommend for setting up a food blog that's not only visually appealing, but also technically optimized for performance, SEO, and monetization.
Well, one thing that I learned from just engaging with this community, that there's so many really useful resources around, making sure your page speed is up to par, and, focusing on SEO, keyword research, making sure your site is clean, proper metadata. I worked in the back end a lot, so, technical SEO, once I got into it, and I've also really gotten more into inclusive web design, so accessibility. It's kind of frustrating sometimes because, while certain social media algorithms will boost you up for emojis, it's not the most accessible feature. I did a post the other day when, if somebody is using a screen reader, for example, and they read out all these emojis, the experience is very hard for those who have, accessibility issues. But, anything that has to do with structuring your content, and I'll even go like a step ahead of that, because I feel like, I'm not a marketer. So a lot of these things have already been discussed, but I think thinking ahead, really thinking about structuring your content to be on platforms off Google that are not in Google. Because isn't that what we should be thinking about now that Google is no longer a monopoly? And what that means, like, even just, not that you should, don't strip down all your blogs now. That's not what I'm saying. But definitely explore the different platforms. Go on Bing. Right. Does anybody remember Bing?
Yeah, I
Google and
want to
Bing.
ask you, like, what do you recommend? Because I don't think anybody even knows where to go. Bing,
Yeah, so
hold on.
Bing, there's DuckDuckGo. My husband knows DuckDuckGo. Even there's so many. There's the one with the fox. I can't remember that one, but there's a lot of different Mozilla.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean either is going to work or not work, but I would say, because been so Google first for so long, that's the only thing that we really are super familiar with, how the pages are structured. Bing is a good one because I feel like, Microsoft, they've done, a good job with at least keeping Bing as relevant as it could be. And also I would say even thinking off the web, and thinking, because there's places that you know I think, as as I mentioned before, are underutilized when it comes to content creation for food. And I think also, being having an innovative mindset and taking certain steps to promote yourself as a content creator who's interested in innovative opportunities is not for everybody at their stage of their business. So, if you're an advanced blogger, if you've been doing it for 5+ years and you have all these kind of things that you've already doing that are in play, that is, working for you, and you have the space to, take kind of innovative risks, I think that is the type of person that, should be looking, like, really pursuing certain things. And for those who are really just like are working from sponsorship to sponsorship, I feel like that's a lot of people. Education, just even, if you see a free webinar, take it, And I was talking to, I saw this great LinkedIn post by Diane Jacobs, who we should all know and love. And it was about AI. And I said, Diane Jacobs, you better go. And it was just like, and I thought, like, okay, Diane Jacobs, she's wonderful. She's really revolutionized cookbook cooking for food writing, in this age. But, even if she was speaking on, it, and she's been doing speaking things too. If you see people that are adjacent to your field speaking on these things in a way that's approachable and that you can understand. And a lot of these opportunities are free as well. Just to kind of educate yourself on these things, I think is really, really important, so that when things come up, you can talk about them in an informed way. And then things don't suddenly happen, and then, like, you're scrambling. And I feel like once that starts happening in the blogger community, then, like anything, like before SEO was relevant, and it started to become a thing, there was like this panic. But then there started to become resources within conferences, like, the ones you guys have had, where there's these boot camps, these masterminds. And I feel like with any emerging technology, because SEO was an emerging technology, I believe AI will be doing that too. It's just like, let's early adopt, so it's not so overwhelming. Because I feel like even though SEO is something that has come into our lives and is relevant across any industry, there's a lot of anxiety associated with it. And I think that it's because it was just happened like a tornado. And yeah, so I think, if we can have more people talking about it now, and participating in that conversation and doing things and experimenting, it'll be a lot easier.
I agree with that, the educational piece, because I think, we talk about this a lot, and maybe I have a strong opinion about this, but I do think that the herd mentality in food content creation and food blogging does not necessarily breed innovation, because it's more of, there's been somebody who's done something that's worked well, a thought leader more or less, and then people say, oh, I want to learn that template or how you did that thing.
Right.
Let me do it. And that's good and valuable. I mean, that is education and that's important. But I think to your point, innovation starts when we start educating ourselves and critically thinking and asking questions like, how can I be innovative with this? How can
Yeah.
I, to my advantage, like you said, early adopt things? I think it's interesting for you to talk about looking at other search engines, Bing being one of them. I do want to caveat the whole thing that a lot of people right now are saying, well, there's no monopoly anymore for search with Google with this ruling. It's just going to go to Bing and then it's just going to be between the two of them. And then the small guys are going to
Hmm.
get washed out. And sure, there may be some truth to that, but that's an oversimplification of the issue. So I think, yes, maybe get more familiar with Bing. But I think for those bigger players who can afford to take some risks, like you were saying, even looking at decentralized platform cooperatives, have
Hmm.
those or like have you seen them or like what is your experience or knowledge with platform cooperatives from a content creation space?
I'm not familiar with that concept, actually, if I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
Do you have
So
an
yeah, so I would say it's essentially instead of relying on, and this just comes from like my digital sociology work that we talk about, this whole issue of getting off these centralized servers that even
Oh,
to
I
power
see.
what we're doing right now,
Yes,
we rely on
yes,
Amazon servers. We rely on
yes, yes, yes,
Microsoft,
yes.
they contract out to each other. It's still big
Right,
tech as a whole.
right,
They're
right.
making all the money off of our data. And it's then saying, how can we, the people, truly in a democratic process, create our own platform cooperatives? I don't know how it's done. It's just this idea that people have been talking about. I think it's definitely like new trailblazing. But I've talked
That's
to
a,
my professors about that. And he's like, you're in the content creation space. You should be talking about this. I'm like, nobody knows what that is. So I guess here we are talking about it.
well, that's the thing, I think that's so interesting that you said that because in my last role, servers was a big thing. Whenever, I would work with companies and, they wanted to have a white label version of some new platform we were launching or whatever. It's like, well, what server are we going to use? And this idea of having their own server, but then there's costs associated with it, and all these other things, right? Um, and I think the biggest step underst towards liberty or independence is understanding your current situation. Like you already know about, that we're on Amazon service and we're on this server and all that.
Mhm.
Does anybody else really understand those things? Like maybe, maybe not. So once you understand like what's going on with like, okay, I have this website. What powers this website? Like what is here? What is there? I was just attending this webinar from another agency about self-publishing your cookbooks. Like I'm not a cookbook author, but I just thought it was interesting. Like I wanted to understand the process, not because not, there's different paths to publishing. You can use the agencies. There's many benefits to doing that. But wow, it's good to know that I can also self-publish and this is the process. I think with, not having, being part of that server situation, it's the same thing. It's like knowing what the options are and that could be something, but because it's so new, more people need to understand what that is and how and what the benefits are so that they can come together and make some changes.
And I think so many bloggers are so like just head down trying to
I
create
know
this
it's so overwhelming.
and to do that. And
I
so there's
sense that.
education piece. So I think that maybe just letting people know, this is a whole nother beast. And so just saying, I'm going to
Right.
dedicate 1 hour a week to learning new education in my field,
Right.
something like that,
Absolutely.
because otherwise you're
Yeah.
like, so Jen says, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I know. I saw it when it popped up. I was like, I said, I don't know either. I'd be just educated, all of us.
And it is.
But
Don't worry
yeah.
about it. I'm sorry. It's like me being like the singularity's coming for all of us. It's just a theory, people. We'll talk about it in
Yeah,
another episode.
Sandie, I
but
want to ask Jen wanted to
oh,
know if you had any specific examples of bloggers using brand AI integration in these ways. She loves looking to others for inspiration.
and no, so I'm not yet. I don't, but I am, one of the things I'm hoping is to surface those people because you know what happens is that maybe people are using it, but they're not very forward about it. Like nobody is actually that I've seen is saying like I'm using AI, in this way. So if anybody out there is, I am putting case studies together to um, to do that because I think it's also important to let the other parts of the food industry also know. Did I just read my? The other parts of the food industry know that these things exist or these people exist that are doing that because there is, I feel like, a polarizing situation happening where the industries feel like they're this way or, they're in this spot and then content creators are like way over there. And they may not know that there's actually an emerging trend towards innovation that they can also tap into. So I don't know a lot of people or any yet, but I'm certainly looking out for them because those are the people that I think are going to be leading the way in the future of food. Not just in tech, they have this phrase called vaporware. So that means like when people come out with a product and it doesn't really work, but it's just like a PR thing. A lot of the things that have come out when it comes to AI recipes, spoiler, vaporware. So, but and I think inherently bloggers know that too because I've also seen a lot of things on social media from content creators like, look at this is crazy, but that's where another thing I'm promoting is domain expertise from food bloggers because the nuances of cooking. I remember years ago, we tried to create this AI generated meal planner. This was years ago, but the manual effort to put all of the variables in is intense. But we were successful to a certain point only because everybody talking about it knew how to cook. You
Mm,
know,
yeah,
this is important. You can't train a model with information you don't have.
exactly.
And there's
They're
like a
trained.
lot of Yes, exactly. So I think that there is also a space for a food blogger to put on their media kit, that they are a specialist in cooking prompt engineering. And they, you know what I mean? Like, because these developers, as intelligent as they may be, some of them don't know, a lot of them don't know all the nuances that are in cooking. I worked with a wonderful woman years ago when I was building up my own team, in cooking, and I didn't know the first thing to start with. And, I flew her out. To China. That's another story. I was living in China at the time. And, we worked together. And I really appreciate she's a cookbook author. And I appreciated her a lot because she also started to improve her technical understanding, even though she'd been cooking for decades and publishing cookbooks. And so when we were at a meeting with the product managers, with the developers, with my whole team, she knew how to do the technical talk and explain to them why, units matter. In a recipe. So I think, that's also a really important aspect of it too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I think that's something new I've never heard of in terms of people putting what skills do I have that can, I think to your point, Jen, of like, how can I
Mhm.
integrate my skill set with AI is I have the ability to communicate the language that these learning machines and models need for all
So
of these
important.
programming and platforms that we're seeing emerging. I mean, I think there's a lot of like recipe platforms that are coming out right now that people have questions about that
Yes.
like about that too, in competition to search and how to let your
Yeah. And I think it's like anything, you see something and it's so bad, and you just cringe, right? Why not, just reach out and says, I was looking at your platform and it's not very good. If you ever need some consultation, You know, because there's menu consultants. I've seen that on people's, media kits, menu consultation and a lot of consultation. So, putting a tech twist on it, you
Yeah.
know, why not? Why not honor yourself to be on those boards, to be on those, you know, um, incubator teams,
Yeah.
and be that expert in
That's
cooking.
really smart.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think the women in this space, maybe I'm making an assumption. I think sometimes that we forget that we're technically women in tech and thinking about all the technical
absolutely,
knowledge that food publishers who
absolutely,
have websites know is incredible. And I think really leaning into that because it is still very male dominated overall, even how, a lot of it's written and produced. And I think that's an important thing to call out.
absolutely, absolutely. And it feels, I've been my first role in life. I did accounting for 10 years, and then I ended up doing this for another 10 years. So being in this space that you do mention is and it doesn't even that is true. It's a very male dominated, but even from a content creator perspective, we have to remove this thought in our mind like we're not part of the conversation or it's like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're very much a part of it because guess what? We're all trying to do the same thing, which is get some good food on the table.
Mhm.
And everybody's goal is the same. And another conference that I went to, and there's a very popular, very a global brand representative, senior executive. He said, you cannot take the human, and I quote, you cannot take the human element out of AI recipes. You cannot do it.
Mhm.
And so if that's the case, then every single recipe developer, content creator on the planet is extremely important in the way people are going to be cooking in the future. And I have this really fun statistic that I saw. It said 63% of consumers, like a Nielsen report, 63% of consumers are more likely to buy products or services from a company or brand that's seen as innovative,
Mm.
you know? So, I mean, what does that mean? That can mean a lot of things. That means it's forward, it's exciting, and also relevant to the way people are living their lives today. So I was like, oh, but that makes sense, right? Like when we think about if we just remove ourselves from our actual jobs and professions as content creators, just how we live our lives day to day and who we follow and what's important to us, and innovation is not just tech, it's technology, but also with sustainability, with inclusivity, all of that is in the same umbrella. And so aligning yourself and keeping up with brands, and there's so many brands that people
Yeah.
know and love that are embracing technology too. So just being aware of those things, I think, is super important. It may change your mindset too about a lot of things.
I think that's amazing. And that's a really good, I think, thought and note to end on, with just those stats and that quote and everything. And I know, Chandice, you've had some experiences with putting the human back into all of these things as we develop our businesses. So if you want to share
Mhm.
that, close out.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, for everything that you've said for us, it's really important for us to continue to add that human aspect that will set us apart from all the AI that is coming. And so we are so grateful for you, Sandie, for joining us. What a great
This is
episode.
so fun.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I think these are the kind of conversations that you leave really thinking about the rest of the day, the rest of the week. And it's good because it keeps you learning and growing. So we're so grateful for you and your expertise and knowledge. So thank you so much. Tell us a little bit about where everyone can find you.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look me up, Sandie Markle. I'm also on Instagram, Blueberri Biz, Blueberry with an I, not a Y, like my name, Sandie with an I, not a Y. So you can follow me there.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, Sandie. We appreciate you.
Thank
If
you.
If today's conversation was helpful to you and you're itching to learn more about monetization and diversification, please join us for our virtual Tastemaker conference, which is this Friday. We just have a couple of tickets left. There will be hundreds of food bloggers there in attendance, as well as many of our sponsors. We're really excited to have that opportunity to chat with them. It starts at 10 a.m. Eastern time on Friday. Lots of great workshops, speakers, networking, and a lot of fun. We're also going to have giveaways, which we always do. So that'll be great too. Definitely don't want to miss it. And don't forget to RSVP for our next episode of Tastemaker Talk, which is number 10. We've hit number 10, Abby. Can you believe it?
That's exciting.
Yes, we will be chatting with Alexandria Drazowski. I think I said it right. About what to do with all that money, honey. That's the topic. So we are really excited, and we hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.